to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That's the name of the Lord. Somebody gotta tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now. May not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. He got to take away from you so you understand how to depend on El Shaddai. Come on in here. Thank you, Jesus. Our young people are dying. Cracked out. Suicidal. Homicidal. They'll kill you at the drop of a dime. Our jails are full. Yet the crime still runs rampant. .7 WTCC. Good morning. Welcome to the Spoken Word. This is Bishop Talbert Swan. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 3 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And another edition, remote edition, live and in color from the man cave. Broadcasting here on WTCC. Today, I'm going to be talking about riots, violence, and looting. And I'm going to talk about the hypocrisy in the narrative. Why those who are talking about riots, violence, and looting among those who protest injustice are often silent about violence against black bodies. I'll talk about some of the protests that have happened over the course of this week and some of the subversive tactics to try to stop them, even right here locally. So a lot to talk about. 413-337-1867 is the number here. 413-337-1867. Also going to have half past the hour guest with me, Senator James Welch will be with us, so stay tuned for that. So a lot of stuff we want to cover with little time, but we're gonna do what we do, how we do it all the time. Once again, 413-337-1867. I need all of you who are streaming. I need y'all to like, share, subscribe, whatever it is you need to do. Tap that screen, send the hearts up, all of that. Let them know that the bishop is on the air. I want to give a special shout out today to all of the people who have worked in the Western Mass area and really across the nation, but specifically here locally, on social action to bring attention to injustice. The young people who planned the march from Central to the police station. I want to thank City Council President Justin Hurst, Councilor Tracy Whitfield, Tara Parrish and the Pioneer Valley Project, and the executive members of the NAACP for the peaceful march we had on Saturday. I want to thank those who came out to the Spring of Hope Church on yesterday for our parking lot praise and protest. And these are just outward symbols bringing attention to an inward problem. The work continues behind the scenes 24/7. But those who wanted to step up and do something did. And I want to thank you for the time and the effort. I've been organizing for many, many years, so I know the time and effort that it takes to bring things like that together and to bring people together. So thank you so much. Listen, don't you dare touch that dial. Tell somebody the bishop is on the air right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. A part of the Battitude says everything about you. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Every day you get up, you've been given a gift. That's why they call it the present. And it's up to you of how you unwrap it. So yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift. So don't let the pain of your past bleed into your present and poison your future. Stop replaying the movie, why did this happen to me? When it's done with you, be done with it. If it seems like you keep running into pigeons, it's an indication that you're flying too low. So set your sights a little higher. Remember, eagles fly by themselves. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Allow your challenges to be a stepping stone to propel you into new possibilities. So be discontent with your past accomplishment. You're only as great as your last success. So maintain your hunger and your passion. Remember this, within every seed there is a tree. In every tree there is a forest. Who and what you were born into is simply the environment to prepare you for your ultimate purpose. It was not a setback, it was a setup. Your purpose and potential is bigger than your past pain or problem. Remember the time that he gave to you. Listen to your heart, don't let your mind fool you. Remember the time that he gave to you. Whatever you do is gonna surely come back to you. Successful people will do the things they hate to get the things they love. Much of life is about sacrifice. You gotta give up something to get something. Success is not about what you've accomplished, but it's what you have overcome. For it's the test that you pass in life which qualifies you for the next level. You have to be willing to face your challenges and overcome them. Most people drive 12,000 miles a year moving forward, but most accidents are caused when they move backwards. You gotta stay focused on what's ahead of you instead of what's behind you. It's your daily routine that determines your success or failure. Whatever you practice at is what you become great at. What's more important than being intelligent is having the right attitude. Respect costs you nothing, but it will cost you everything not to have it. So don't be too smart for your own good. Remember, a hard head makes a soft behind. What's more important than your five senses is common sense. The heart of a fool is in his mouth, but the heart of a wise man is in his character. So don't sweat the small things. The answer for a short temper is a long walk. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, and remember this: you haven't lived long enough to know everything. Your character is what matters most. Once you have been labeled with a bad reputation, it's hard for people to see you any other way. A good name is worth more than all the money in the world. Your life is broken up into three parts. First you learn, then you earn, and then you return. You gotta give back. Talk to me, talk to me, daddy. Talk to me, daddy.
90.7 WTCC. Good morning. Good to be with you as always. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's been an interesting week. It's been a very eventful week, a very emotional week. With everything that's going on in the nation, and really, unless you live the experience of Black people, you don't get the totality of what's going on. You just don't. And so for those who want to lecture us, I'm gonna need y'all to just I'm gonna need y'all to sit back and relax and just listen, just observe, just kind of lay in the cut. If you want to support, by all means support, but don't lecture us on what we should or shouldn't do, should or shouldn't say. That's not your place. If you don't live under the threat of state-sanctioned violence like we do on a day-to-day basis, it's not your place to make certain comments. One of the favorite signs that I saw over the weekend when we were protesting at Nathanville on Saturday, a young white lady had a sign that said, "I'm here to listen to you, not speak for you." And that's the attitude that we need folks to take. We need you to listen to us, not speak for us, not lecture us. Don't talk to us about what good is tearing up your neighborhoods going to do, yada, 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 yada. Y'all been tearing up our neighborhoods for time immemorial. Let's just keep it 100, as the young people say. What do you think you did when you destroyed Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Rosewood, Florida, or Atlanta, Georgia, or there's a whole section. If you go down to the African American Heritage Museum in Washington, D.C., there's an entire section dedicated to cities and towns, Black cities and towns that were destroyed by vigilante racist white people just because of white supremacy, just because of racism, just because they couldn't stand to see Black people thriving, not dependent on them. independent black towns that had their own banks, their own grocery stores and barbershops and businesses, and where money was revolving consistently in the black community. They couldn't stand that level of independence, destroyed entire economies, entire towns. And with that history in your back pocket, you want to rise up and talk to us about riots, violence, and looting. That's the MO of America. How do you think you got America? You think violence had nothing to do with that? You think looting and riots had nothing to do with that? What do you call genocide of Native Americans? What do you call enslavement of Africans? And the systematic lynching, murder, rape, brutalization, and dehumanization of black people. What do you call that if that doesn't rise to the level of violence, riots, and looting? America is the byproduct of everything you're condemning the protesters for doing or for allegedly doing. Burning buildings, stealing things. America is stolen land. Every inch of it. Every inch of it. You can't lecture black people, Native Americans, Mexicans. You can't lecture us about stealing. Wyoming, California, New Mexico, Arizona, all of that stolen from Mexico. And now when people act out of their angst, righteous anger, and frustration over state-sanctioned violence and brutality and murder, you want to reduce it down to looting and condemn that, but not condemn the white supremacy that America was built on, that created the climate for this type of reaction. There's something wrong with your analysis of a situation when you condemn the response of the oppressed and continue to justify the actions of the oppressor. That's a problem. That's a problem. Your view is myopic, it's tainted, it's racist. I mean, just that's what it is, people. That's what it is. You know, when you are oppressed, and I had this white guy yesterday tell me, how he was speaking on behalf of millions of black people. Listen, let me just pause right there. White folks, you can't speak for black folks. I don't care how many black friends you got, black boyfriends, black babies, black, black dogs, black whatever. You cannot speak for black people. Okay? And said to me, he knows black people who choose not to be oppressed. Like black people who are oppressed, it's because we choose to be. Like, who the hell chooses to be oppressed? I mean, some of the logic behind how some of these folks think is crazy to me. When you are oppressed, there is no acceptable way to fight against your oppression in America. There's no acceptable. I don't care. All of these folk who are out here talking about that's not the way to do it. The looting, the violence, there's a better way, there's a better way, there's a better way. Well, if there's such a better way, first of all, how come you haven't taught your white police officers the better way to police besides murdering unarmed black people? If you're going to teach somebody about a better way, why don't you start there and come holler at me about how I protest later? Since you are the expert on the better way, go teach Billy Bob and them in the police department a better way to police black people. Try that first.
What does it say?
Okay, try. I'm gonna need y'all to do that first. Since y'all the experts on the way to do things, teach them the way to police. All right. Until you can do that, stop lecturing us on the better way. The reality is this: there is no acceptable way to the broader white society for black people to fight against their oppression. We get branded as unpatriotic when we peacefully take a knee to protest against police brutality. You're more concerned about a piece of cloth with some stars and stripes on it and what it represents than you are about black bodies. See, we're not concerned about symbolism and what your flag represents. It represents freedom and justice, Bishop. The hell with representing freedom and justice. We want real freedom and justice. I don't want no flag that represents what you ain't willing to give me in the first place. Okay? It represents tyranny and injustice and murder to us. The Klan, white vigilantes, and everybody who has ever taken black lives and brutalized black bodies has always marched under that flag. So you got to understand that flag doesn't represent the same thing to us as it does to you. The third stanza of the national anthem that you don't want us to kneel down while it's playing. That third stanza literally talks about the murder of enslaved Africans. It literally talks about the foul footsteps pollution, the blood-drenched footsteps of enslaved Africans. Yeah, Francis Scott Key, slave-owning racist, wrote that into the lyrics. Talked about the murder of the enslaved in the third stanza. I know you only sing the first stanza, so you don't even know what the third stanza says. But you're asking black people to respect, pay homage, and stand up with their hand over their heart to a song that literally boasts about killing their ancestors. See, y'all don't even know what you asking black folk to do. You would never ask your fellow white people. You would never ask Italian people, French people, Irish people, German people to put their hand on their heart and respect and stand for a song that boasted about murdering their ancestors. But black people, we're unpatriotic unless we pay homage to symbolism of our own murder. So we can't peacefully protest by taking a knee. We get vilified if we use boycotts as a nonviolent tool of resistance. We get called thugs when after the murder of yet another unarmed black man by the police, we protest in the streets. It doesn't matter what we do. It's unacceptable to the broader white society. I mean, the sickening video of George Floyd being killed by a white police officer in Minneapolis, right on the heels of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia and Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, rightfully sparked demonstrations across America. Rightfully so. And there was civil unrest. See, I don't call it rioting, looting, and arson. I call it civil unrest, because when what sparks actions like that is the righteous anger and indignation of a people who have long been oppressed and ignored and unheard, I call it civil unrest. What white folk did to black people, that was rioting, that was looting, that was arson. When you were randomly, indiscriminately murdering people and destroying our towns and stuff for the simple reason that we were black, that's rioting and looting and unnecessary violence. There's something wrong when, and check your friends, check your white friends and your coworkers. Something wrong when they're more concerned about Target being looted than the targets of white supremacist violence. Something wrong with them. You know, don't placate them. Don't agree with them. I mean, even if you condemn, even if you disagree, and I do, and most of us do, we don't agree with breaking into stores and destroying property and all of that, but we understand it. But even if we don't agree with it, don't agree with them, because they're not coming from the same place that you're coming from. They're basically, Talbert, your people can find a better way than looting and this. But your people haven't found a better way than murdering us. Now, when your people find a better way than oppressing black people and murdering black people, discriminating against black people, then talk to me about the better way.
What this is saying is,
tired of y'all telling us a better way when y'all ain't found one yet. That orange Mussolini in the White House had the nerve of threatening bloody reprisals, tweeting out, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Others have reacted with hard hand wringing, a lot of cries of violence is never the answer, rioting is counterproductive. But if violent unrest isn't the answer, what is? That's what I want y'all to tell me. And I know I got the trolls on here. I know y'all on here because y'all always on here every week. After I talk to the senator, I want to open up the phone lines and I want y'all to tell me what the answer is. Okay? Because if that's not the answer, what is? How exactly do you go about ending police brutality and systemic racism in America? How do you do it? Because y'all keep putting it on us when the problem is not us. If y'all just stop doing it, we'd be cool. But stop. How are you going to be beating me upside the head with the bat and blaming me for not stopping you? And holding yourself without accountability for actually doing it. That's what essentially a lot of our white brothers and sisters are doing. Blaming you for your own beating instead of blaming the person who's doing the beating. Oh, man. How do you end it? Should protesters go home, write sternly worded letters to their representatives? Should they yell at the TV? I mean, what should they be like Madonna and post videos of their kids dancing in protest? I mean, should they peacefully take a knee? Oh no, we already tried that one right there. I mean, should they simply just vote Trump out of office and Joe Biden in, and then it'll magically go away? The guy who 1994 crime bill significantly contributed to mass incarceration. I mean, should people just patiently wait for this progress and this incremental change that y'all keep telling us is coming, but never seems to get here? Is that what we need to do? I mean, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, in a 1967 speech that still reverberates through social media for obvious reasons. And he said, and what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. That was 53 years ago, and America still is not hearing us. And brothers and sisters, the uncomfortable truth, this is the uncomfortable truth. Violence sometimes is the only answer left. We like to pretend otherwise, but we know that. What does America do? Preemptive strikes. You attack Iraq even though it hasn't attacked you, just in case. Just in case they might do something to us, so we're going to hit them first. So America is well familiar with the uses of violence because they're violent against people who aren't even violent against them. You know, they like to pretend otherwise, which is why civil rights movements are often conveniently sanitized. You know, they celebrate the women's suffrage movement as nonviolent. It wasn't. It went through a very militant phase. You know, if men use explosives and bombs for their purposes, they call it war. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. So don't y'all run away talking about Bishop Swan was justifying or sanctioning or calling for violence, because I'm not doing that. I'm trying to educate you. That's what the orange guy in the White House was doing. I'm simply saying we got to interrogate what we call violence and what we call policy, because often there's no difference between the two. Many of the people yelling violence is not the answer about so-called riots on the streets, okay, in Minneapolis and elsewhere, are the same people who wholeheartedly support America's endless wars. They support America's violence in Afghanistan, America's violence in Iraq, America's violence in nations across the globe. They support that. But they call oppressed black people breaking windows at a Target, they call that violence. They call American soldiers bombing schools and killing innocent civilians, oh, just casualties of war. That's patriotism. Y'all can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways. Many of the people condemning the looters in Minneapolis are the same people who venerate billionaires, who rob people every day, barely pay their workers a living wage. But if you loot a TV, you're a dangerous criminal. Loot an entire country, you're an enterprising capitalist. Think about the logic of it. America has no problem with riots as long as the right people are doing it. And we've been paying for this worldview for generations. American taxpayers have paid, check this out, an average of $8,000 every, I forget how much time it is, so many seconds for the Iraq war alone. See, we don't have, and we talk about, oh, how much money it's going to cost to rebuild these cities and these stores and all of that kind of stuff. But y'all ain't thinking about how much money these wars cost. You're not thinking about how much money you pay out in settlements for police brutality cases. Trust me, the family of Breonna Taylor is going to get paid. The family of Ahmaud Arbery is going to get paid. The family of Botham Jean is going to get paid. The family of George Floyd is going to get paid. You talk about rebuilding these cities and towns, the sections that have suffered some damage, when you pay out millions upon millions of dollars for single acts by single police officers in murdering or brutalizing black people. But you don't care about paying that out. That comes out of taxpayer dollars as well. Right here in our own city, Springfield, Massachusetts, we've paid out millions of dollars. Do you hear what I'm telling you? Millions of dollars. Listen, I'm going to bring on our illustrious state senator who's going to come on the program with me. And we're going to talk about what's happening, what's going on in America and right here in our city. Senator,
Good morning.
good morning. How you doing?
Doing okay. Can you see me all right? I'm on my phone rather than my laptop, so I hope
That's all. That's all good. That's all good. I can see you. Let me see. Let me play with this and see if I can get us side by side or something like that.
Oh, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure you can see me. I can see you. Well, no, actually, you're down in the corner.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it. I just wanted to make sure you could see me because I was fooling around with the technology. It wasn't working for me perfectly, but
Gotcha. So, tell me what's going on, man. First of all, let's give me an update of what's happening in the state house, and I want to talk a little bit about this second phase of Governor Baker's reopening, which starts today, I think, with restaurants and some other businesses, and then we'll talk about what's been going on in the nation. You've been out there at some of the marches and things, and we'll deal with that. But first, let's get an update of what's happening in the State House.
well, physically at the State House, not much has been going on because we've been, working remotely, of course, from as a result of the COVID-19. But we have taken quite a few steps throughout the past few months to try and alleviate and try and help with the COVID-19 situation. Recently, I would say not only helping to provide funding for businesses and individuals, obviously through unemployment. There's so many people who have unfortunately had to file for unemployment, no fault of their own, that many people have been going through the process for the first time. So our offices have been trying to help people navigate through that process. And people have just had questions, where does my business fall in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? And it's, everything is, kind of a gray area when it comes to some of those businesses. But as you had mentioned, Bishop, today is, I believe, the beginning of phase 2, which involves restaurants opening for outdoor dining and at certain capacity. So little by little, things are, at least from the COVID-19, the pandemic side of things, things are starting to open up a little bit and get back to normal. But people want to get back to work. They want to get back to and obviously kids are going to be out of school soon anyway. But some sort of normalcy in their life, and the COVID-19 has been, took over the world for 2-3 months, and reality from an economic standpoint, it's been somewhat devastating to state government. Federal government has a little bit more flexibility when it comes to, providing resources and whatnot. But we've tried to stay, step by step with it, COVID-19, but it hasn't been easy, because it's been something that that nobody's ever dealt with. And not that you want to say there's a silver lining to what's been happening with COVID-19, but I think, as much as anything, there's been a spotlight put on, our health inequities in our communities throughout the country. And I chaired healthcare finance for 6 years prior to this term. And the one thing that sticks out to you when you're starting to go through and learning about, the background of healthcare policy and statistics and data, the first thing that stuck out to me when I was learning all of that was, the inequities in the healthcare delivery system and in the healthcare system in general, and healthcare outcomes for Black and brown populations. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has put a huge spotlight on those healthcare inequities, because, as we know, statistics have shown that Black and brown people unfortunately are being affected much more frequently and more devastatingly than our white population, because of the underlying health inequities and underlying health conditions that exist that we as a society haven't yet. We have the data, we have the information, we know, that these inequities exist, but we haven't dealt with them yet. And this coronavirus pandemic has put a huge spotlight on that. So we have a lot of work to do, no question about it, when it comes to, dealing with the aftermath of COVID-19. And part of that, dealing with the aftermath of COVID-19 is to really address health inequities in all of our communities throughout the country, and can't ignore the statistics and the data that slaps us right in the face. We can't ignore it any longer. Certain people are getting access to healthcare that other people don't have the access to the same healthcare, and that needs to change. Whether it be preventative healthcare or any other type of healthcare, that needs to change. Everyone needs to have access to the same healthcare delivery system, and be able to access the same type of treatments, the same type of resources when it comes to healthcare, and that's certainly just not happening right now. So we need to continue to work to address it. We have done, during the COVID-19 kind of couple months here, we did just pass, and the governor signed legislation, the data collection information around COVID-19 that highlights and would protect those people who had underlying conditions, so they wouldn't be, if you remember, maybe the first couple of weeks of COVID-19, there was talk of, well, we're not going to have enough ventilators, so we're going to have to, decide if there's 2 people that need a ventilator, we're going to have to decide which person gets it. And part of the guidelines that were put in place, to be honest with you, were really dove right into the health inequities and really highlighted those healthcare inequities in our minority population. So we passed some legislation that would protect that from happening. So, but nonetheless, a lot going on. But
let me ask you this, Senator, because Massachusetts, for a number of years, had been on the cutting edge of universal health care. As a matter of fact, part of the Affordable Care Act was really based off of the Massachusetts model, to bring people across the nation into some level of parity around healthcare coverage. Are we seeing that same disparity that exists nationwide in terms of access to healthcare for Blacks and other non-whites. Are we seeing those same type of numbers here in the Commonwealth?
Well, I would say, in Massachusetts, you're right. We have been on the cutting edge when it comes to healthcare policy, which in some cases, um, in other states are certainly typically Massachusetts gets rated very high, usually one, two, or maybe the top three in terms of states with addressing these type of issues. So from that standpoint, Massachusetts is still on the cutting edge, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's really a cutting edge. We're just ahead of some other states that choose to ignore these type of
Yeah,
inequities. So we're at least trying to identify and address them. We have plenty of statistics, and as you know, Bishop, when it comes to just diabetes in our African American community and how it disproportionately affects African American community, especially our youth. That's something that we can address. That's something that we can deal with by providing resources for programs in the community that can help address that. And it's not, I hate to say, rocket science. It's really just about putting the right resources in the community that actually get to the people that need them.
absolutely. 413-337-1867. On with State Senator James Welch. Um, so the civil unrest that's going on around the nation, really the spark was the murder of George Floyd. But of course, we know there have been underlying issues for years. This is, I guess, what they is the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back in terms of what we see happening across the nation. How do you view um, um, policy in America when it comes to policing and the various responses that we have seen to this latest tragedy in Minneapolis and really across the nation? You were involved in several of the protests that have been going on here in Western Massachusetts. Just give us your vantage point on what's happening in America.
Well, I think, well, first and foremost, obviously, the death of George Floyd was something I think for every American, every person around the world, that can watch that video, can't help but just, I don't even know what the proper response is other than, being angry and being just upset that something like that could happen in our country. And it was just that the George Floyd video and incident is just, as I stated yesterday, was just a complete disregard for a human being's life, and that can't happen. We can't have people serving in uniform that have a mentality that their life matters more than the person that they're dealing with, or that the person that they're dealing with's life matters less than theirs. And that needs to be rooted out systematically through our law enforcement. And it's not going to be an easy task, that's for sure. But my view of what's been happening over the past couple of weeks is, I definitely feel as though people are that much more attentive to it. I don't think anybody can look at that video or see that video and not be dramatically affected by it, because that was just watching one person kill another person very slowly, and that just to me has just been etched in my mind. And we need to people need to be held accountable, whether it's the officer that's the direct person that committed the act or the crime, or the other officers that didn't stop them. They need to be held accountable, and there needs to be accountability within each individual police department or law enforcement agency that's going to be in place that says that if you don't speak up, if you don't act, there will be consequences. And I know that's not easy for many people to hear, but in reality, they need to there needs to be accountability within each agency from individual officers. And I know it's not easy to hear, but it's a reality that's going to have to happen going forward.
So let me ask you, and I think that's an excellent point in terms of the need for accountability. Um, um, that people are telling me this, they're having some problems in terms of viewing. I know everyone can hear you, not
Oh,
everybody can actually see you. Um,
that might not be a bad thing, Bishop. I have a face. I have a face for radio.
um, but when we talk about accountability, you came to a protest we had uh, here in Springfield at Nathanville, which is symbolic of an incident that took place 5 years ago that resulted in 14 current and former officers being indicted. I know there were a number of elected officials that were reticent um, to participate in that action because they didn't view it as just about George Floyd, when police brutality is never just about one individual. But it was highlighting some concerns we had about accountability right here in our city. Um, why did you come to that march when politically it probably would have been politically safer for you to sit that one out? Um, in terms of some potential backlash by your constituents who didn't necessarily support that particular approach in highlighting this local business and what's happening right here in the city.
Very simply, it just felt like the right thing for me to do. I wanted to be there. Wanted to show, obviously, my support and be part of the process. I think, for me individually, and when I, as we've dealt with this issue, this current, uh, issue after the George Floyd death, I made the commitment to myself and to others that I have to look at myself internally, kind of evaluate myself. That's where it starts. How am I, viewing certain situations? How am I reacting to certain situations? And I think that goes for, not only every individual, but every community as well. Communities across the country have had issues over the years. Some have been talked about and some haven't. Obviously, we've seen issues that have, obviously used the George Floyd issue or the George Floyd death as the latest example. But I think it's when that happens, you have to individually look at yourself, evaluate yourself. If you're a community, you have to look at yourself from within, evaluate the community. Are we doing things that we need to be doing to be part of the solution? And it all starts at home. It really does. It starts individually and then out to our immediate community and with our neighbors. And I felt as though that it was the right thing for me to do, to go. I certainly have no regrets about going. It was not only a peaceful protest, and obviously, Bishop, you can attest to this too. It was actually very uplifting, a
Yeah,
very positive event that I think got the message across that needed to be sent. So, and I think most people understand that you can stand up and speak out against injustice or speak out against something that's wrong, but also be supportive of law enforcement that are out there to do the right thing. And there are plenty of police officers and members of law enforcement that are out there to do the right thing. We all know them. But there needs to be accountability within departments and the willingness to stand up and say, hey, what you're doing there is wrong, and your attitude towards certain people and certain events cannot be tolerated while you're on the police force or just in society in general.
absolutely. So the um the state budget obviously is going to be affected by what's happening with the economy and as a result, direct result of the pandemic, et cetera. The last I checked, it was I think it was something like a $6 billion deficit or something around that mark, and the state government was waiting on the federal government to see whether or not there was going to be some aid given um, to the various states before it began its budget process. Because usually by now you all are deep into the budget process. Talk a little bit about what that's going to look like, and especially during this time where we have a lot of businesses that are hurting. I know a number of small African American businesses in the community that are hurting. Some of them won't even recover after this 10-12 week sheltering in place around the pandemic. Is there going to be any room in the state budget to provide any level of assistance to some of those struggling businesses?
Well, absolutely. I think that'll be, one of the highest priorities for most of us, because when it all comes down to it, and I know it's been said, over the years, but all politics is local. So the reality is, when I look around the communities that I represent, and when I talk to people, when I go and advocate, for resources in the state budget, I'm advocating for businesses in my district, for resources in my district to bring resources back, to ensure that, especially when you're from Western Mass, you have to fight even that much harder to bring
Yeah,
resources back. And this will be no different, other than the fact that there might not be nearly as much money to be able to go around, so to speak. But just because we're going through a difficult financial time doesn't mean we can turn a blind eye to our communities, and provide the resources for those companies and for those agencies that need it. So it's going to be challenging, no question about it. But I think most legislators view it as saying, okay, well, I'm here to advocate on behalf of my district and try and bring resources back. And I think we'll continue to see that. It'll just be the unfortunate thing about state government is we can only we have to pass a balanced budget, whereas the federal government can basically spend as much money as they want,
right.
and print the money to make up for it. We in the state can only spend as much as we take in constitutionally, so that makes things a little bit much more challenging. But I'm pledged to continue to fight to bring resources back, and it makes you feel terrible that as you drive around, during the pandemic, you see businesses that have closed, and you just know that there's a certain percentage of those businesses that are just never going to reopen.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah, I've
devastating
seen
effect
some in my
that's going to.
neighborhood that are already closed, and the for rent sign is up at their
Right.
storefronts already.
And
Yeah,
it's going to have a devastating effect on every aspect of the economy. So we have to be aware of it. As we're getting out of COVID-19, we have to understand that it's going to be a very challenging, probably year and a half, economically, to try and break out of what happened to the economy. But we have to try, and we have to fight, and that's just the reality of it.
absolutely. 413-337-1867. I got 2 minutes left on the air here on WTCC. I can sneak in a call if someone wants to get one in with the senator while he's on the air, but you got to call me quickly before we transition out of 90.7. And of course, we'll continue on with our online audience, 413-337-1867. So it's also election season, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But let me get my outro music, and we're going to transition off of WTCC, and then we'll go on for a little bit with our online audience. And of course, once again, you guys already know to check me out. Our Wednesday virtual Bible study is on Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. And then also Sunday, we will be streaming live from the church at 11 o'clock a.m. And then, of course, Thursday, we'll be live at 9 o'clock p.m. So I want to thank all of you who've been listening over WTCC. Hopefully, we'll be back in the studio soon enough. We'll see what happens with that. But in any case, we'll definitely be with you on next week. I want to thank our remote director who has made it possible for me to get to you over these last 10 weeks remotely. Mr. Jim Malaquez, thank you so very much. And so until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember God loves you, and so do I. All right, people. We had to sign off of the air on WTCC, and now we're back live with Senator James Welch. And I saw some of you all trying to call in. Hopefully, I got the picture thing worked out, because now I can see us side by side. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. For those of you who were trying to call in on the program, we'll take your telephone calls. Let us know what's on your mind on this Monday morning. So yeah, so you're absolutely right, Senator. There probably won't be as much. It'll be a lean budget, but there'll be many that will be depending as much as possible. I know in times past when budgets have been lean, the governor has used his 9C authority to kind of chop away some of those funds that have been earmarked. Um, and I guess explain that, because I guess that's not a process that you guys can you can't override that. You can't use it.
Yeah, so the 9C process was a process put in place for emergency financial situations in the Commonwealth. For example, and we'll use can use, I guess, 9/11 or the 2008 economic housing crash, so to speak, as examples. When something happens, midstream that the economy, just isn't prepared for, and economists haven't factored into their estimates for providing revenues, and say cuts because we have to pass a balanced budget and we can only pay for programs through what we bring in. There has been times in the past that we've allowed, or at least put in place, the 9C plan that would allow the governor to make emergency cuts as he or she sees fit, to help balance our budget midstream, in the middle of the fiscal year. But I would say, and as we've had our conversations with governors of the past and governors of the present, that these are emergency powers that need to be need to be implemented only as as an emergency arises, or in really a last case scenario. There shouldn't be any politics involved when it comes to that, because as we know, legislators, I'll use myself for an example, when I advocate to bring resources back to my community, it's not always a program that maybe the governor or anybody else may not necessarily see as a priority, but it's a priority to the district that I represent. So we try and really stress that 9C cuts need to be wielded very carefully, and they can't be targeted. They can't be politically motivated, so to speak. They should be, fair across the board. And I think, because we're not necessarily going to be dealing with this midstream, because we are in the budget process right now, the timing of the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic will be felt, but we're in the process of transitioning from FY20 to FY21. So we should be able to build that in, which hopefully would prevent the governor from having to use the 9C cuts. But you never know. You never know. We don't know what the real financial statistics are, because economists haven't been able to build in these past 3 months. They've never seen something like this before. So it's going to be a challenge, but hopefully we can prevent that from happening.
Okay. So election time, of course, we know every quadrennial we've got the presidential election. So, of course, people are focused on that as well. But we've got elections happening right here in the Commonwealth in terms of our state legislature. And, of course, you're running for reelection. So tell us what's happening on the campaign front, and why should these folks who are listening to you now, who are part of your constituents, vote to reelect you to the state senate?
Well, thanks for the time, and it's been an interesting campaign season, as you can imagine, over the past few months, because campaigning to me over the years has really meant going and
Right.
talking with people face to face, and interacting with people face to face. I mean, obviously you do a lot through the mail, and you do a lot over the phone potentially, but in social media. But where you really can have an effect and really get your message across is when you go door knocking, when you go and visit people at their homes, and you can't do that right now. That is just not an option. You cannot. People are very uneasy about interacting with people because of the pandemic. So you have to be very respectful of that. So from a campaign standpoint, things are a lot different. It's a unique campaign season. My message is to the voters is always, when you look at me, hopefully you look at me as somebody that takes their job very seriously, is willing to do the hard work that's necessary to bring resources back to our community and bring resources back to the district that I represent. And, every decision that I make, whether it's an easy decision or a very controversial, difficult decision that I make, I take the time and I really put a lot of thought, and, my internal character, so to speak, is something that is very important to me, and I try and make my decisions based on what I feel as though I can live with as a person. And when I make those decisions or take those votes, to me, I have to be able to I used to call it the mother test, my mom test. If I could explain it to my mom that I took a vote a certain way, then I knew that I would that I was making the right decision. People might disagree with me, but if I could explain it to my mother, I could explain it to, I felt comfortable with it. My mother's now passed away, so now I say I need to be able to explain this to my kids, that this vote that I took, that this decision that I made is in the best interest of the people that I represent. And if I feel as though I can do that, then I feel as though I've made the right decision. But at the same time, you have to be effective. You have to build relationships. You have to be able to, when you need something or your district needs something, you have to be able to deliver. And I feel as though I've had the ability to deliver over the past decade or so, to bring resources back to our community and to the district that I represent. And I'm very proud of that, whether it be schools or libraries, or just programs that nobody's ever heard of, that go directly to our communities, that actually get to the people that need those resources. Oftentimes, we need to be more direct and really take the resources of state government and put it directly into our communities, because if we don't do that, it doesn't happen. The money just doesn't get there, and the resources just don't get there. So I've tried to be responsive, and I've tried to be a person that can deliver on those commitments. And I'm not a flashy guy. There's no question about that. I try and keep my head down, do the work, and try and provide good representation to the people that I'm fortunate have elected me over the years. And I look forward to continuing to do the same. I just want people to think that I'm somebody that's approachable, accountable, that when they need something, they can give me a call or give my staff a call, and we can do everything we can to try and help them. And I feel as though that's the nuts and bolts of government and local government is being accessible and accountable, and being willing to fight for the important resources to bring back to your district.
Well, I can certainly attest that I know from personal experience that you have fought for resources to come back to our community, and certainly we need somebody who is a fighter and who can kind of have those relationships to ensure that those resources do come back to the district. 413-337-1867. If you got a question for Senator Welch, we'll take your telephone calls. So there was Attorney General Maura Healey made a statement that I understood what you were saying, but a lot of folks are saying it was controversial when she was talking about the civil unrest that's going on, and in particular, the burning and the looting, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, she said, "Well, you know what? Yeah, America's burning, but that's how forests grow." She kind of put a positive spin on it, that at the end of this, something more wonderful can come out of it, and folks have been trying to drag her about that. What's your take on her statement, and then what's your take, because that's how I started out the program, talking about this heavy focus on not the systemic racism that caused civil unrest, but the response to the civil unrest. What's your take on that?
Well, it's true. That's how forests grow, is by fires, and to that point, that is absolutely true. I don't think any of us want to see any devastation or anybody getting hurt, anybody further getting hurt. That's for sure. But you have to, and as a society, and we've seen it all around the world, and now we see it in our own country. When things get to a point where people have to act out, and we live in a democracy that the power of the people that are represented by the government have the ability to speak up and speak out and act up and act out, as long as they're doing it in a peaceful way, so to speak. But sometimes it gets to a point where conflict arises, and that's just part of government. I don't think you can look back on the history of the United States and any other way than this is what has happened throughout our 300 and however many years that we've been in existence. This is part of our DNA here in the United States. And again, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt or businesses damaged or anything along those lines. But this is how our society has dealt with issues that they felt strongly about over the past several decades, centuries, if you will. And her comment, I think when you make comments, and believe me, I'm just going to speak frankly here, as a public official, when times are sensitive or times are uncomfortable, because it's certainly an uncomfortable time for a lot of people, and when you make a statement, sometimes people are going to pick apart every word that you say, and they're going to say that you meant this or you meant that. I give credit to any politician or any elected official that's willing to speak up about an uncomfortable situation, because that's the only way you can move forward. If you ignore it, sweep it under the rug, we're just going to find ourselves in the same position, not too far down the road again. So, when it comes to comments, I look at it, as long as they're not saying something completely offensive. If you're willing to speak up and speak your mind, I think that's a very important part of the process to grow. There's no question about it. People feel uncomfortable right now. Everybody in the community feels uncomfortable, but you have to deal with it. You have to internally look at yourself and say, why am I uncomfortable, and what can I do to help, and what can I do to be part of the solution?
And there's something to be said about how people act in uncomfortable environments, because especially when you're in public life, I'm of the opinion that you've got to be able to maneuver your way in an uncomfortable environment, and you do your constituents a disservice if the only time you can show up, the only time you can be a part of something, if it's only with those who completely agree with your position, and make you feel comfortable. I don't think you've really been tried or tested until you can stand in a room full of people who vehemently disagree with you, and still engage that particular crowd.
It's the only way we're going to move forward, is if we're all willing to get, I hate to use a cliche, but get out of your comfort zone. I think probably the main reason one of the main reasons, politically at least, our country is where we are today, is because people have gravitated towards only like-minded
Yeah,
experiences and people
kind of a
that
tribal
agree.
mentality.
Yeah, and we have to get away from it. We have to. I don't agree with everything you say, Bishop. I'm sure you don't agree with everything that I say, but you know what? We can be friends, and we can be work together towards making our community better. There's no question about it, and that
Sure.
goes for I'm not a supporter of President Trump, but I have friends that support him. I may try and talk them out of supporting him and try and raise issues that I
Please
think are
talk to
concerns.
them.
You got to talk. You got to talk to people and express your views, and do it in a way that's mature and adult. And we're in the end, we're all just setting examples for the next generation that comes behind us. So if we're not willing to talk to people that disagree with us, or if we're willing to just cast them off because they have a D or an R next to their name, we're not going to be going anywhere. We're just going to find ourselves in difficult circumstances all the time going forward. We have to be able to interact and work with people that are different than us. And, that's, I think, on all of us individually to be able to look at that, look at ourselves and say, am I living up to that standard? And, I pledge to do better in that respect. And, I don't like to tell people how they should think. I don't like to tell people how they should act. I don't like to tell people what politics they should follow. But, I would say, if we truly are committed to trying to move forward, move and get to a point where everybody in society is treated the same and has the same rights and really is truly an equal member of society, we have to have these very difficult conversations, confrontations, and at the same time be able to accept that what my neighbor thinks might be completely different than the way I think, and that's okay, as long as it's not something that is a danger to the community or danger to the society. But it's incumbent upon all of us to be able to make the points that we feel are the right points for our communities, and that's vice versa too. Maybe I'm sure there's people out there that think, hey, Jim Welch is whatever he's saying is wrong, and I hope the people that feel that have feel as though they have the ability to give me a call and tell me that. And I'd love to have conversations with people around that. You're never going to agree with somebody 100%, but you got to be willing to have conversations to move us forward. Because if we don't, and we continue to get into that tribal mentality, um, you know, I don't have. It doesn't seem like a very bright future for our country if we can't get past that.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell the audience your first which committees you serve on in the Senate, and then give them the contact information if they need to get in touch with your office, if they need any constituent services, or just want to ask you questions or co-sponsor legislation, whatever it is that they want from you. How do they contact you?
Well, in age, there's a lot of ways to contact me or my staff. We're still working remotely. Which is and will which has its challenges, but luckily I have a great staff, a local staff led by Vanessa Ford, Sebastian Villanueva, Bruce Gendron, and Jennifer Hayes out of the district office that handle every constituent issue that comes in. Do we bat 1,000, meaning that are we able to completely help every person 100%? We try. It's not always going to be the case, but if people need to get a hold of us, we have a district office on Hampden Street in Springfield, on the backside of like the Fort Restaurant next to the WGBY building. That's where our local district office is. The phone number there is 413-737-7756. Email, of course, james.welch@masenate.gov. And then, of course, social media, Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram. We're getting involved in Instagram, and it's tough to keep up with all the different social media platforms, but we're doing the best we can. From a legislative standpoint, I chair the Committee on Financial Services, which deals with banking and insurance issues in the Commonwealth. And I previously had served as the chair of Healthcare Finance, and I've transitioned to Financial Services, which deals with a lot of this similar type issues around insurance and making sure that cards aren't completely stacked up against your regular everyday average citizen. So we work hard on those issues, but really the constituent service hopefully is something that we try and live up to do our best at. And again, I encourage anybody to give us a call, send us an email, reach out on Facebook. If you have an issue, I can promise you this: we'll help. We'll do what we can to help, and we'll work on it 100%. Hopefully we can fix the issue, but I can promise you that we will work on it, and we'll work on it diligently and do everything we can to help people in their time of need.
All right. I want to appreciate you coming on today, Senator. Good seeing you at service yesterday as well.
Great message.
And we'll definitely be in touch, going forward. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
That was
Bye-bye.
Senator James Welch, our own state senator here representing Springfield and other parts of the Commonwealth. And we like to bring our elected officials on to have conversations with them around the issues of concern, what's happening in the State House, giving us updates and information, and asking them questions and seeing their positions on the issues that are important to us. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867 is the number here if you want to get in on the conversation. I was talking about this heavy focus on spinning the narrative about the protests that have been happening across the nation, changing it from a narrative that talks about the extrajudicial murder of Black people and talking about looting and violence um, and protesting, etc. Um, and whether you agree with what they're doing or not, who can have that conversation? Who can who can talk about that? Um, Certainly not those who have stood by idly watching the brutality against black bodies and have not spoken up against it. You're not in a position to do that. Um, you can't uh, look the oppressed in the face and tell them how to protest against your oppression. You can't do that. I mean, that's just not how it works. Um, but that's what's happening here, and they're using the murder of George Floyd as a sidebar. Yeah, it was wrong what happened to George Floyd, but all this looting and stuff, y'all gonna have to stop that. You know, like the murder of the black man is like a side piece to this, and the more important issue is you breaking into Target. Um, um, it's crazy, um, and that when you value buildings and property more than you do human life, there's something wrong with you, something wrong with your mentality, something wrong with America when you're more concerned about the life of a dog or about the window of Target or about a police car than you are about human life. I mean, that's an issue, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I you know, I'm more upset about the audacity that you have to talk about the looting in that way than the actual looting. Because it's like, hold up, really? Is that where we're going with this? And words have meaning. Uh, words have meaning. They 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 are important. The way you talk about an issue. You know, the dictionary definition of a riot as a violent public disorder. Um, um, and you using that term to call it disgusting and reprehensible, but then the language that's used when talking about George Floyd, rarely do you see in the media or politicians or those in the public narrative use words about what happened to George Floyd as murder or lynching. You always hear terms like George Floyd died. No, he didn't just die. He didn't just die. He was murdered. It's always this softer, more passive language when it comes to what happened to him. He passed away, he died, or he was killed by. But you don't want to use strong language and say Minneapolis police lynched him. You don't want to say they murdered him. You're very conscious about using the politically correct language so that you don't label the police as violent, vicious, white supremacist murderers. But then when you talk about the protesters, violence, looting, reprehensible, vandalism, disgusting, thugs. How is it that you use stronger language to condemn the righteous indignation of oppressed people than you do against those that murder them? I'm confused about that. I don't understand that. Somebody gonna have to help me with that. You know, when Breonna Taylor was murdered, and see, they used, once again, they used it. Watch the language. Breonna Taylor was fatally shot. Breonna Taylor died after she was lynched. She was murdered. But then Mayor Greg Fisher got up and said that the violence and destruction in the streets is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, he had strong condemnation about the violence and the rioting in the streets. Much stronger condemnation than he had about the murder of Breonna Taylor. Trump called the protesters thugs, anarchists. You know, reflexively condemning the actions of those that are in pain and responding to their pain as reckless and self-defeating basically minimizes the extent of their rage. You are basically, somebody said they're calling. Let me reset the phone lines. You should be coming through. Basically, what you're trying to do is minimize our rage and act like we don't have a right to be angry. All right, 413-337-1867. You should be all set to call in, those that are trying to get in. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to act like you all shouldn't be this upset. And then when they deflect and they say stupid stuff like, well, more white men die at the hands of police than black men, all that stuff is trying to deflect. I mean, George Floyd's death is just part of a familiar pattern of confrontations between police and black people who lose their lives over minor offenses or no offenses at all. I was at a protest and someone was reading the names off of people who have lost their lives, and the number of times they said, after a minor traffic stop, why do we have to die after minor traffic stops? And yet crazy white boys don't die after mass shooting rampages. Why I got to die over a busted taillight? But white boy don't die after murdering people in a church. Why do I have to die over speeding? But a white boy can bust in a theater and shoot everybody in the theater and get taken into custody without incident. Why are we dying over minor traffic violations or alleged violations? I mean, for all of the denouncements, you know, there are people who say this civil unrest, once again, because I don't like using riots, are the actions of those who have exhausted every other way to be heard. Are you hearing me? They have exhausted every other way to be heard. Come on now. Every other way. You're not hearing us. And for those of you who keep on quoting Dr. King, Dr. King said a riot is the language of the unheard. A riot is the language of the unheard. You know, who was it that said, holla if you hear me? Listen, you're going to have to hear us. You're going to have to hear us. All right, I just tested out the phone line. Phone line's working fine. So for that person who keeps saying they're trying to call, you're going to have to check it on your end because we're working out pretty good. 413-337-1867. Listen, I'm over 50 years old. I don't remember a year in my adult life, in my entire adult life, that there wasn't case after case after case of police violence. And this was long before the onset of social media. This was before everybody had a camera on their phone. This is before viral videos of police violence got out there. I don't remember a year in my entire over 50-year-old adult life where we didn't hear of dozens of cases of police violence against black bodies. Come on, y'all. Stop pretending these are isolated incidents. Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
How are you? I was listening to you, and my friend had told me to start listening to you because of the frustration that I feel as a Latina, Afro-Colombian. I just am sick and tired of the way that the media and the world has taken upon that if we stay calm and we talk. I was a little frustrated with your guest. I don't condone that we go out and burn everything. But at the same time, before all of this was happening, I felt this unrest. Because how many times can you wake up in the morning and see another black human being be killed? And it's not even being killed, it's assassination.
Right.
Because growing up for me, I'm from New York City, and growing up for me going to South America, to Colombia, you know, we had high cases of assassination, drug lords, you know, and so I know what assassination is. This is assassination. What they did to Aubrey was assassination. They cornered him, they hunted him, and they did not murder him, they assassinated him.
Yeah. It was a modern day lynching. It was a modern day lynching.
That's what it is. So the when he has his knees on George's neck and all the knees that are on all the black people and all that is a rope. That is a lynching. That is putting your hands in your pocket. Those are subliminal talks. Those are subliminal symbols. Because what people need to read to understand the history of the slave code, that is to make the black people understand that you better behave. There is no more talking. There's no more talking. So when you say that you know, people are saying about the looting and all these things, that is propaganda of the white people. It is so that we literally got to stop looking at that shit, listening to it, because I'm no longer programmed. I'm awake. So when they say looting, I don't even hear them anymore. Because I don't see it anymore. Because from the beginning of time, the KKK and all the white supremacists, they were burning our houses. They're burning houses down.
Well, that's why I can't stomach when white folks start talking to us about so-called looting and burning without the acknowledgement of the fact that America was built off looting and burning. That they did this to black townships, to black people for time immemorial. And now they want to talk about our response to their collective violence being unacceptable, but not about the collective violence. The other point to that is every time we talk about police violence, brutality, and murder, the standard response is there's a few bad apples. 99% of
Thank
the
you.
police are good police.
Amen.
Well, if that's the case, and you keep murdering black people and brown people across the nation, then could we not then make the argument that 99% of the protesters are not looting and burning, et cetera, et cetera? But you don't see that argument, you know.
No,
So
and because they're uncomfortable with it, because this is a true fact. You have to get down and dirty and accept the fact that you may be standing alone. You may be standing alone in your neighborhood. You may be standing. If you have a Black Lives flag outside your home right now, they may come and burn your house down. That's okay. You have to accept it. But we need to rise at this point. Because listen, I grew up around police officers in New York City. My stepfather was a police officer, and I will tell you, they are racist. I grew up in Manhattan. I used to think, well, I didn't see a lot of race. No. Once I woke up, I could hear it. I could hear the talk around me, the jokes. It's not funny. It's not funny anymore. And that is why people are standing up and saying no more. That's why they're getting on their knees in football and saying no more. No more. And listen, I'm angry. I'm disgusted.
Yeah. And I understand it.
And that's what this uprise is. This is it.
And I prefer that term.
No more. There's no more.
I prefer that term right there. Instead of talking about looting and violence, this is an uprising.
It is an uprising.
This is
it. Do you remember? I mean, listen. How many years have we been hearing that Jesus is coming to get us? First of all, for me, Jesus was black.
Yep.
And that's just the way it was growing up for me, people telling me how things are, okay? Because I can go into, like, how the hell did a white guy with blue eyes survive in Egypt in the sun? But
let me pause right there, and I'm gonna let you get back to your thought. Right now, the highest rate of skin cancer in the world is among white European Jews in Israel. So that tells you right there, how could they have been white and survived in that region of the globe?
But see, that's the uprise. Because let me tell you something. I'm a light Latina, okay? I am a light Latina. But I'm telling you, we are waking up to the truth, and that is the uprise. We are God's children. We are Jesus. We are uprising. We see the truth. This is it. This is no more talking. There's no more talking. Now, I'm not saying it frustrates me. We got this out. No, you got to keep marching. You got to keep defunding and break it down. This is it. The new generation will not going to put up with this anymore. I'm 47 years old, and I raised my children. They are going out and they are marching, and I am willing to die side by side.
Yeah,
with every black person on this earth. Is everybody out there listening to me? Are you willing to die? Are you willing to die for this? This is it.
There's a saying that says, if a man, as a matter of fact, Dr. King said, if a man has not found something for which he is willing to die for, he is not fit to live. And this is a struggle
I am
that we
willing.
deal with.
I am willing to die. I'm willing to die for you. I'm willing to die for every Black person. I'm willing to die for all my brothers and sisters. I am willing to die, and that's what I want everyone to listen. Are you willing to die? Are you willing to put the flag outside? Are you willing to march? Are you willing to stand and say, I will no longer be around my family members, my friends? You got to stop talking, because you can't talk to these people anymore. You cannot talk anymore.
We have a huge, a long Black Lives Matter flag that is being draped on the outside of our church today. Now that you say that, because we want the message to get across. I know you said you're Afro-Colombian. A couple of years ago, I had Marina Cordoba at my church during my lecture series. They call him the Martin Luther King of Colombia, who has been fighting, who's been fighting there for years against corruption and for the rights of Afro-Colombians. They've attempted to assassinate him several times. So we've been connecting with our brothers and sisters across the diaspora, because what we see happening here in America is really happening globally.
Everywhere. Do you know, when I was a little girl growing up in Manhattan, my grandmother used to put me on the train. She lived in Spanish Harlem. I lived in the Lower East Side, and she would come and pick me up. So I'm lighter, and she used to tell me, I'm like, why are people staring at us? And she said, because they think that I'm your nanny. They think I'm your babysitter. They don't think that I'm your grandmother because of the color of my skin. So growing up, for me, I was taught very since birth that what bothers me the most when white people or people in general say, I don't see color. I love everybody. And my girlfriend, who is Black,
they just erased us when they say that.
Exactly. No. See, I see your color, and it is beautiful.
Because when you don't see my color, you don't see my struggle. You don't see what I go through. You want to pretend that I'm the same as you. And basically what they're saying when they say I don't see color, they're basically saying I'm going to look at everybody as white, because that's what they see. They see white as normal, as the standard. And so when they say I don't see color, I'm going to see you all as fellow white people. And which means you completely erase my culture, my history, and my struggle.
I am a survivor of leaving an abusive 17-year marriage. And let me tell you something. Every word, everything he ever did, the gaslighting and everything, that is what white America is doing. That is what the white supremacy is doing. That is what Trump does. He is gaslighting us. He is abusing us. And he is part of the problem. But he gave permission for these people out here to go and open up the Oz curtain and do it in public. Because this what's going on. It's been going on every freaking day. And we have become lazy as a nation to allow this. No more. You cannot talk anymore. No more sitting there and saying, oh, okay, let's have a combative conversation. No. You know what my ex-husband used to say to me? If I stood up for myself, he used to say, talk to me in that tone. You are unbelievable the way you're speaking to me. And that's what they're doing. Oh my God, there's Lloyding.
Yeah, I mean, and think about that just for a minute. That we can systemically lynch, murder, discriminate against you, oppress you, dehumanize you, and brutalize you. And then if you have the audacity to stand up and express your righteous indignation against our violence, you're the one with the problem.
Yes. And that's where we're at right now. Enough is enough. And this has to stop. This has to stop. That's why they put us in these like cookie cutter houses, and they say, yeah, just sit here in this away neighborhood, and as long as you're safe, you just keep your mouth shut. No more. No more. Do you understand? Like, we're in a society like this that you cannot call the police. You can't call them. They are trained assassins.
It's dangerous when black people call the police, even for their help. It's dangerous to our lives. Remember, people have to remember when a Tatiana Jefferson got murdered by police, somebody called the police to do a wellness check on her because they were worried about her because her door was open at 3-something in the morning. And police who were supposed to come and check if everyone in that house was okay wound up murdering her. I mean, this is the reality. A young man was running up to the police young black man, after former football player, after he got into a car accident, seeking help.
In Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes, they shot and killed him.
That's where I'm living now. And that's where I'm living now. And we had an uprising here, and look what they did to us here. Look what they did to us here. He called for help.
Yes.
For help. And then we had back-to-back unarmed men being shot here.
Yeah,
this is in the South, and now this is what I say. Georgia is a mess. That whole place cannot be reformed.
Yeah, they're a hot mess.
Black people, pack your bags, stop giving money to that damn freaking state, walk out. Atlanta
Georgia's a mess.
All black.
Georgia's a mess. Alabama's a mess.
That whole place is a mess.
Florida's a mess. Alabama. I mean, many of those states across the South, and people always talking about a Democratic-run cities in the Northeast and the Midwest that are a mess. We got whole red states run by Republicans that are hot ghetto messes.
And see, so people say, oh, because Trump is part of the issue. What he gave was the subliminal message that you can now do this in public. We've got universities here in North Carolina that the presidents are just writing whatever the hell they feel like. And then now, because they know, they're like, well, we can't have this because universities are about money. They're corporations. So it's like, oh, we're sorry. No, sorry doesn't work anymore. Letters don't work anymore. We have a Home Depot over here in Charlotte, North Carolina that had a row of nooses. They were all nooses on the display. And this man said, what the hell's going on? And then the employee said, that's not a big deal.
Really?
This just happened the other day.
Wow. Well, Trump's
they don't talk about that. They talk about the looting.
Trump's teacher of the year put up a post on her social media that basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that until we get discipline like it was before, then we're going to continue to have problems. And she put up a picture. Matter of fact, let me pull it up so I get the wording right. And she put up a picture of a noose. Joanne Tucker is her name. It says, if we want to make America great again, we will have to make evil people fear punishment again, with a picture of a noose.
That's the slave code. That is the slave code. And that's exactly, it's never stopped. What it is that they want you to kneel down and shut up. They don't care. They're like, they don't see, society doesn't want to see that why is it that every Hispanic and Black community has a bodega and a liquor place? They can't even get a personal loan for small business. There are college graduates here in Charlotte that can't even get a bank account. Black men are being killed here. See that we have a museum here, the New South Museum, right? So they have these little black and white TVs, and they show that when before the test of time of TV, they used to do those flip photography where it turns into like pictures and then it turns into a movie, and they used to put black people and make you believe that they were the devil, and that's what they've done in society. So they did this whole thing where if you're driving and you see a black person, they close their door.
Right.
Because that is what they have done. They that you have to get educated. When are we gonna? How do we end this? When are they gonna get over it? How do you get over something when it's never stopped?
Right. And that's the thing. You know, they act like someone had posted yesterday, it's unfair for you to go back 400 years and then blame us for the stuff that happened then. We're not talking about what happened 400 years ago. We're talking about what happened yesterday and today.
It wasn't that long ago that black people couldn't even go on the bus. It wasn't that long ago that they're still using dogs to attack black people. They're using them to attack black people. They're hosing people down still to this day. I mean, this is not. I can't understand. How is it? But see, here's the thing. So I'm going to go back to like people who apologize. So we got Drew Bree or whatever his name is, and he's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what I was saying." No, he knew exactly what he was saying. He knew what he's saying. He went to Purdue University. He's an educated person.
Well, he knew what he knew what he was saying. He knew what he was saying. Here's the bottom line. It's hard for you to be an adult in America. I don't see how you are an adult white person, not see what's going on, and then always claiming ignorance. So he's a football player. He's followed this whole argument about taking a knee from the inception. He's heard every argument that has been placed out there. He heard what Colin had to say. He heard what we had to say. He knows that we've said over and over again, it's not about disrespecting the flag. He knows that at first Colin took a knee out of respect for the flag because it was the advice that a veteran gave to him. He knew about every aspect of this argument, but held to the white supremacist point of view that you niggas better stand up and put your hand over your heart around this flag and this anthem.
About slavery. The anthem is about slavery. Look at the ice cream truck. The ice cream truck. The damn theme is racial. It's about black people. I mean, it's horrible, and we're supposed to just sit here as if we're in the freaking Matrix and go, and like sheep and go, oh, I'm just so happy the ice cream truck is here. You know, like, I'm just so glad that we got a flag. No more.
Yeah.
Look at us. Look at us. We've got to get together in a band, like society, to rip down statues that they had sitting there. That's what it is. How many years has everyone been sitting there, walking by, seeing these statues? You go to Charleston, South Carolina, you get on a horse carriage, you pay money, and then it's so uncomfortable. You're like, and the plantations, they all need to be burned down too. Oh, this is where the slaves sat. And then you look at these big, beautiful homes, and you walk through look, and this is where they were, and we're supposed to go, oh, wow. No more. Stop showing that shit. Burn it down. Stop doing, no. You can read, we can understand, but to keep putting this out here, to keep putting statues out, this shouldn't have been where we need to get thousands of people to rip down statues. How the hell did it get up there in the first place?
Well, the irony of that is, some of you all will remember last week, Candace Owens got on her soapbox and made this video basically castigating George Floyd. He's not a good person. and black people have to stop making martyrs out of their criminals, and all of that. And I'm sitting, and then she defends Confederate monuments, and says how horrible it is for the left to try to get rid of Confederate monuments. Now, you can't, on one hand, say black people are making martyrs out of their criminals, and then defend Confederate monuments, which are nothing but celebrations of white criminals, of racist criminals.
That's triangulation.
I
And
mean,
what she's not talking to the masses. She's talking to the white people.
yeah,
She's talking to the white people. And so, see, here's the thing: is that we should be very concerned with martial law and all the things that are going on, because this man is not going to go away quietly. See, so everybody needs to understand that he is not going away quietly. And this right now is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. So people better get straight and start educating themselves, because this is not a political thing. This is a humanity thing.
yeah,
This is
absolutely.
humanity. And everybody needs to stand up and say, where are you today? Not politically. Where are you in the human race today? And for me, I am willing to die with my black humanity. I am willing to die.
Appreciate your call, sis.
And that's-
I feel your passion.
And I praise you, because it takes a lot to do what you're doing. It takes a lot. It takes a lot out of your soul. It takes a lot out of, it is a dangerous, dangerous world. But you have to put your foot forward and say, are you willing? Are you willing? Because this is what everyone needed for years. Like, for years. I believe in the Black Panthers. I believe in the Black Panthers. And then they sat there and they did the same thing. They put them in jail. They called them criminals and all these things. They don't allow anybody to uprise. And this is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen anymore.
Absolutely.
This is it. That's why I got so frustrated listening to the gentleman that called before. There's no more of that talking anymore. I'm not saying that we should go and murder people. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the table is removed. There is no more. And nobody is going to listen to the way these subliminal talkings, because they're talking in slave code, and it's not going to work anymore. Not going to work anymore. So I'm blessed that you are here, and I am going to be praying every day, and I'm standing right by you.
Thank you, sis.
And I love you.
Appreciate you. Love you back. You take care.
Love you.
God
Bye.
bless. 413-337-1867. The uprising is nothing but demands for justice among people who've been unfairly targeted for years. Uprisings ignite when people feel as though they have nothing left to lose. When the usual channels for affecting change in a democracy have not worked, when nonviolent protests have not worked, when voting has not been effective, when all of that happens, they feel like that's all they got left. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bishop. My name is Cameron Ricks. I'm a student at the University of Houston.
All right.
I don't want to take up too much time today. I just want to let everybody know that the not USPD, but the city of Houston is having a vote to increase on whether or not to increase the budget for the UHPD, not UHPD, but the Houston PD.
Okay.
I just want to let everybody know to go out and let your voice be heard and call your council member and tell them to delay the vote so more Houstonians can have their opinion heard on this matter.
All right. I appreciate the call and thanks for the information.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. 413-337-1867. Language matters, ladies and gentlemen. Riot is loaded. It's a loaded term. When they talk about white folks rioting, they use terms like rebellion instead, because it has a different connotation. Because rebellion signifies you're rebelling against something that is evil or wicked. For us, it's riot. Like we're just inherently violent, and we're out here being violent for no reason. Good morning, caller. Caller, you're on the air. Turn your radio down.
All right. How are you?
Good morning, caller. I'm good.
I'm wondering why people keep voting for Democrats that give the police a pass.
That's kind of a general question. What do you mean? Where are you talking about specifically? Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Florida,
Okay.
but
Because in Florida, they're typically voting for Republicans.
Yeah, but in Minneapolis, Amy Klobuchar, she reviewed the police officer in question.
Yes, she did, and she failed to prosecute him.
Yeah, we all need this. We need reform. And as your previous caller said, as I heard on the air, I feel for her. I do.
You see, I'm just not convinced that. I think the question you asked is legitimate in terms of why do we continue to vote for politicians who basically are in lockstep with the type of racist policing that we have in America, but I don't think that is necessarily tied to one political party. That's it. I always say racism. I always say racism, white supremacy, anti-black bigotry does not have a political party, because a lot of times people try to make racism a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It's a white person thing, and it comes in all different political ideologies.
They do. I've been asleep in a van in a parking lot and heard white people say "kill all the N-words."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a mixed person, so I hear it from both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they've tried to do, many on the right have tried to say, well, the Democrats started the KKK. The Democrats,
yeah, I know.
The Democrats were the rebellious.
You're only a few years older than I am.
Were the Confederates, so on and so forth. And so I just flip it and say, yeah, but who's trying to protect the Confederate monuments now, saying it's part of our heritage, and who's running around with the Confederate flag? It wasn't about party.
Let the statue stand. Let the statue stand. Let them stand so we know where we came from.
Right.
Don't wipe away the past. Don't whitewash it.
Absolutely.
No pun intended.
Absolutely. Y'all got some work to do out there in Florida, though.
We got just a few storms.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about y'all got some political work to do out there with Ron DeSantis and some others. Yeah. Absolutely. Appreciate your call. Thank you.
Take it.
413-337-1867. A few more minutes left before I sign off here. The term riot basically connotes like this senseless venting of frustration, of destroying your own community and all these other things that are counterproductive, as if there couldn't be political value in civil unrest and forcing the system to examine itself, which is exactly what this is about. Let me ask this question before I get off the air, because I want white people to really understand this. How did we get here? People watch that video of George Floyd being murdered. That visual adds to trauma. That visual adds to trauma. Let me ask, when is the last time white people had to see white people murdered by police on video? Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, turn your device down. There's a delay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that me?
Yeah, turn your device down.
Okay, I actually don't have.
Whatever you're listening on, turn that down, because it's a delay. All right, you're on the air.
Okay. My name is Roxanne.
Mm-hmm. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from St. Pete, Florida.
Okay.
Well, we have had some great protests here. My sister lives right behind the police station,
Mm-hmm.
so she was able to watch, and she lives in the black neighborhood. But they've been very good here, and we haven't had a lot of problems. But what I wanted to say is, I'm 58 years old. I'm an old white lady.
Okay.
But in 1967, I lived there in Connecticut in Waterbury, and we had
My mother
riots.
is from Waterbury, Connecticut. She was born and raised
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, the dirty water, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember in 1967, I was 5. My sister was maybe 2 months old. And there was this liquor store across the street from us. And they broke the windows and were looting. And I'm like, want to see what's going on. So I'm going at the window, and my dad's like, no, just get back. And so he put my sister and I under the bed, but nobody bothered us. I've never had a problem with the black community. I've stood up for them because I never knew there was a difference until I went to school. Because my father was a musician. I had a mixed race auntie and uncle, a mixed marriage, and my first crush was a guy named Mick James, believe it or not. He's a pastor up in Northern California now. But when I went to school is when, I noticed that, I didn't notice because there were people they called me names and lover. And I went home and I was like, I don't understand, why did they call me that? And my father had to tell me, this is what's happening. The black people are fighting because they are still treated so badly. Like I said, he was a musician. So, he played with Billie Holiday and all of that. So like I said, we were always part of the black community. And I even say now, I was over my sister's house last night and we were all talking and I said, look, I have more in common with the black community because I grew up poor and that's where I lived. And, and that's who I went to school with and all of that. And I have always fought for we need peace. And there is no difference. You take our skin off, there's no difference. And to me, what the black community has gone through, like you said about the 400-year thing, that pisses me off so bad. Look what they're doing now that we wouldn't know about if there weren't cameras out everywhere.
Right.
And I'm so sick of seeing my black brothers and sisters be treated like it's fucking 17, sorry, like it's, you know, the 1700s.
Mhm.
And I just want everyone to know that there are more of us than racist people. And the racist people are just loud and ignorant and aggressive. And we just need to keep pushing them back.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thanks, Bishop.
All right.
By the way, I'm an atheist and I love you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling.
All right. Have a great day, Bishop.
You too. Take care. 413-337-1867. About 15 minutes left in the program, and I'll take your calls until show close. Notice the caller was talking about certain targets of the unrest, liquor stores, etc. And the social scientists will tell you that there are certain symbols that get destroyed during times like this. Symbols of violence and oppression. In Minneapolis, the police station, when they attacked the CNN building in Atlanta, it wasn't that they were going after CNN. There was a police station inside that building that they were going after. In Ferguson, Missouri, the convenience store where Michael Brown was accused of stealing. In city after city, liquor stores which are seen as complicit in the subjugation of those communities. Those are targets that often get destroyed. So you have to pay attention to what's going on and what message is being sent by what's being done. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want unrest to go away, if you don't want an uprising, if you don't want a rebellion, if you don't want looting and burning, Reverend, stop lynching us. How about that? Stop lynching. It's like the man who went to the doctor and said, "Doctor, every time I lift my arm like this, it hurts really bad." And the doctor said, "Stop lifting your arm like this." You know, if you don't want the looting and the burning of our cities, how about you stop murdering black people? I mean, that's real simple. I would think, you know, that'd be an effective and preventative measure that we could take. For starters, I think that would go a long way in terms of mitigating the issues at hand. Don't you? Yeah, I bet y'all didn't think about that one. All right, let me see what y'all been up in these comments talking about. White people are desensitized. You don't understand. There we go. Uprising. That's the word we're using. We ain't using rioting and looting. We're using civil unrest or uprising or rebellion. That's what we're using. We're not gonna fall into their narrative. Rioting, looting, violence, arson. It's terrible. Terrible. Yeah. But murdering us ain't terrible. Come on, man. If we burn it down, will the history get taught or will it be forgotten? Well, that depends on who writes the history. That's why we've got to tell our own stories. That's why we need to support Black authors, Black historians, Black academicians. We need to support those who tell our stories so our people can learn about what's happening today from our perspective. You know, the saying goes like this, right? When the story is told from the vantage point of the lion, it's much different than the story that's told by the hunter. So we got to tell our own stories. Absolutely. She's making some very valid points. I see my daughter on here as usual. Hey, baby girl. Yeah, Drew Brees should have known what he was saying, Stacia. I mean, that I don't see how he didn't know. I don't see how you are an active player in the league when this whole conversation was going on, and you didn't know the counter argument to that foolishness he said. So let me tell you, let me tell you what they tried to do to us before I get off the air. I only got 10 minutes left, so let me tell you. So we planned a nonviolent protest at Nathanville, which is a location, is a restaurant in my city where 4 black men were savagely beat by off-duty police officers. 5 on-duty police officers covered up the crime, and 14 current and former cops were indicted by the state attorney general because the local district attorney refused to indict based off of evidence he got from the police department, which investigated itself. The police commissioner has brought those 5 on-duty police officers who are currently under criminal indictment back onto the police force. That's spitting in the face of the black community. So we planned our protest using that restaurant as the backdrop. We did our research, found out who owned the place, etc. We got there that morning, and tow trucks from the towing company that is under contract with the city to do the city's towing was there with 3 large flatbed trucks blocking entrances and saying that they were told by Walgreens corporate, which is another store in that plaza, to tow cars. We, of course, told them, well, Walgreens doesn't own this property. They're a tenant here. They can't just arbitrarily order you to tow cars. People may be here on business that has nothing to do with Walgreens. Then we were told that it was the Springfield police that ordered the tow trucks there, which makes sense because that's the towing company that the police use to make all their tows. So after we raised holy hell, all of a sudden the tow trucks went away. Now, if Walgreens ordered the tow, the city can't rescind Walgreens' order. So for the city to be able to tell the tow trucks to go away, seems to me that the city must have been the one who ordered the tows to try to frustrate the participants in the protest, who would find it difficult to find somewhere to park, hoping that they would go away. These type of subversive tactics they're old hat. I've been doing this too long. They're old hat. Not only that, the day before our protest, although there had been no violence No looting, no burning, no nothing like that in our entire city. There hasn't been one arrest over protests. But yet, Bank of America, notorious for redlining, notorious for discriminating against black people, notorious even when the PPP money became available through the CARES Act, of ignoring black businesses so that it could work with its corporate partners instead. They boarded up their building. Of course, Nathan Bill, the restaurant where this happened, the beating of the 4 black men, boarded up their building and even covered their signs as if we wouldn't know it was them. The auto parts store boarded up their building. Walgreens boarded up their building in anticipation that the Negroes and their allies were going to get unruly and loot and burn. The mayor, in several press releases, described other protests as peaceful protests, never described our protests as being peaceful. I've been leading protests in this city for 30 years, and not one has ever turned violent, but they would not label our protest as being a peaceful protest. The mayor called out the National Guard. We had Humvees rolling down the street because they were going to make these white people in East Forest Park think that the mayor was acting to protect their life and property against these dangerous Negroes and Latinos and whites and Asians who were coming to protest against injustice in our city. It was an amazing display of ignorance and an attempt to subvert the march and incite a reaction. But they didn't get what they were looking for. It was well organized, well attended. It put forth the action steps that we're looking for. Our voices were heard. And the powers that be that were trying to reframe it and write a different narrative about what it was about failed miserably. So once again, I want to thank City Council President Justin Hurst, City Councilor Tracy Whitfield, Tara Parrish, Director of Pioneer Valley Project, and all of Pioneer Valley Project, and all of the members of the Greater Springfield NAACP for a job well done in terms of the protest and not allowing the city and its subversive activities to hinder us in our efforts. Also want to shout out to Minister Benjamin, who made the signs for us at our parking lot praise and protest yesterday at the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ. Another wonderful time of lifting our voice against the pandemic of white supremacy. Those who came out, those who participated, definitely want to say thank you to you. And of course, to the members of Spring of Hope, you know, Pastor loves you and thanks you for all of your support. I know it's not easy supporting such a radical pastor. But you do it with style, you do it with dignity. And I so appreciate everything that you do to support me, to support my ministry, and to support my vision at the church. I could not do what I do without you, and that's real. That's real. So appreciate you so much. So once again, Wednesday virtual Bible study at 7 p.m. My Thursday night, Bishop Swan live at 10 p.m. And then our Sunday worship experience will be at 11 a.m. Check me out on all my social media sites, at Talbert Swan, on all of them. If you're not following me somewhere, make sure you get on there and follow me, okay, y'all? I got to get out your way because I got work to do. It's Monday, but I still got work to do. And listen, we continue to fight. We continue to struggle. No justice, no peace, no racist police. Say their names. Let's stay in this together, all right? Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. I'm out, y'all. Deuces.